Shane, because you're telling a lot of stuff that I don't know about, facts, figures. You're just unreal, and you touched on Helen as well. There's so many more people out there, a lot of people that aren't known to people around. Like, I suppose we're the lucky ones that we're getting our story out there. I see a few people that I know here, and Toomey's down. She's part of Dementia Cares campaign network that I'm part of. She's the Twitter queen of us. She's teaching us all about computers. She's showing the young lads up. So it's people like yourselves who inspire me. I suppose I see a few people here who I'm familiar with, and I see one lad up the back who I'd have been in school with maybe 20 years ago. And if you look at me there, I was scribbling down a few notes, and some things haven't changed in 20 years. These are my notes. I can't read out of a book or something. I just kind of make a few bullet points and go from my heart and from my head and go off the point loads of times. So just bear with me. My mother Debbie was diagnosed with dementia at 50 years of age, but our journey obviously started a long time before that. What I'll tell you tonight is my experience. It could be right, it could be wrong, but it's my own experience. So I suppose when I was 15 years of age, for the age of 15 to 19, a few you here might know it, I was off the rails, to be honest. My mother, my father, and my brother used to call to the house the most, and the next person who used to call most after that was the guards, to be quite honest. I was running wreck around Carsveen, and I can laugh at it now because there was a few scary incidents where it could have went either way. And I suppose my father took the tough approach on it. You know, I'd run in past the door when I knew he was waiting at the door. But my mother took a different approach to me. She never asked me why I did what I did. She just listened to me, minded me, just took care of me. You know, where I suppose a lot of my very close friends growing up, they would have been actually told to stay away from that lad. You know, he's bad news. That's where I was at up till about the age of 18, 19, and I eventually caught myself on. In my eyes, it was down to my mother. I got assistance off all my family, but it was my mother who kept me on track. And I suppose when my mother started showing signs and symptoms of dementia, I didn't even notice. I would have been around 22, 21, and thinking back, it was a bit earlier than that as well, but hindsight is a great thing, you know. My mother was, and I'm sure Cathy could relate to this, so well at hiding things. Yeah, I could ask my mom one question or 100 questions, and she'd have 3 answers that could answer every one of those questions. It was amazing. She used to get me to drive the car home from school in the dark evenings because she wanted to see how good I was at driving. That was her story, but it was because she wasn't able to. She was nervous. She was afraid to drive. We live about 10 minutes from the local town, Carsveen, where my mother was working in the NCT centre, and it was a 9 o'clock start, and she might leave the house at 6:15, 7:15, just so that she wouldn't meet any traffic on the road. And she'd another coping mechanism that she didn't want anybody to know about what she was experiencing. She wasn't diagnosed at this time. But I'm fully convinced that my mother knew herself that she had dementia. So I suppose the signs and symptoms were there. I was a block layer around South Kerry, and I suppose every cloud is a silver lining. I slipped a disc in my back laying, and shortly after that my mother got diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's disease. And I'll always remember it was 2006, and it was an August weekend, and a few lads here would know August weekend in Carsveen is a festival, and that's why it stood out so much to me, because it's a weekend in Carsveen that people come home for it rather than coming home for Christmas. It's one of those ones. It's a big one. And I went up to the hospital here in Cork with my mother, and she got diagnosed on the Friday, and we got a diagnosis of early onset Alzheimer's, and that was it. And I hopped into the car, And I didn't know what Alzheimer's disease was. So I drove down in the car and I said, geez, Mom has this. Suppose she'll have a few weeks now, they'll give her a few tablets and she'll be fine. And I went out that night, carried on like nothing, like as if it was a broken leg, and she'll be fine. To put a cast on it, she'll be fine. There's no, at least we know what it is now. But I suppose I couldn't have been more wrong. I suppose, you know what I talk about when I don't make my notes. I spoke about her covering up, but when I became a carer without knowing I was a carer. Like I said, I slipped a disc in my back. I was at home with my mother. My father was working. We received the diagnosis of dementia, and that was it. Though that was it. You have your diagnosis. We'll talk to you later. That was basically the message. So we're down in South Kerry, and you touched on it earlier on. We're like a rural part of the country. You know, Tralee doesn't have the services. Carsween is like Tralee is the Dublin of Kerry. So you know where I'm coming from. We had absolutely no service down there. So we learned as we went along. Myself and my mother, we used to walk the beach every single day. You know, I suppose we laughed so much and we cried so much through all of it, but dates don't mean much to me. I tracked my mother's, I suppose, decline through phone calls from my brother in America or Christmas time, and I spoke about Christmas time. It was probably the best time of year myself and my mother would have together. So every Christmas, myself and my mother would put up the tree together. You know, even if I wasn't around, we'd have to wait. You know, the tree wouldn't be put up till Christmas morning unless it was myself and my mother put it up. So 10 years ago, we put it up together. She stood the tree. We put on the balls. We did the whole lot, and we'd have Christmas movies in the background. And The Wizard of Oz is her favourite movie, and we'd sit down. We'd watch that. That was like clockwork. We do that every year. We put on the lights, a big roar, and that had happened every year. But every year I'd be doing something more than my mother used to be doing. So I suppose the last few years, my mother passed away in July 2016, and the Christmas before that, it was I put up the tree, I put on the balls, I put on the lights, I put on the Wizard of Oz, but there was no give back. I know it sounds selfish, but I took an awful lot from the reaction I get from my mother. I took a lot of pride. I was, in a selfish way, I loved caring for her because I got so much from it. But there's so much in between those 10 years. I think one of the first talks I gave in relation to dementia was nearly 10 years ago, and I have a little thing written down here. I used to say myself now and myself 10 years ago would be a total different person, but it's actually myself now and myself 20 years ago. So it's 10 years we've been campaigning and advocating for people with dementia and for carers. And I suppose, Kelly, you're more qualified than I am to speak about a person with dementia. I can't speak about a person with dementia. I can only speak about a carer. I can give my opinion of my mother, but you're the professional, like you said. You're the expert, and I suppose I'm an expert in my own right of caring for my mother. So that's all I can talk about. I suppose being a carer for my mum, I came up with a lot of coping strategies. I suppose even in any walk of life now, and I think it's great, it's been highlighted at the moment, this thing about men not being able to talk out, not being able to talk up, you know, the macho man, and you know, it's men don't cry at all. Myself and my mother used to cry daily, and it was I think it was very healthy, because for a long time, and I suppose even now this is more comfortable for me than sitting down with my cousins here and sitting down in a room with my family speaking. This is therapy for me, you know, this is therapeutic for me. But see, when I used to walk in maybe some evenings and see my mother crying and she not knowing that I was there, that was heartbreaking, you know. So I'd sit down with her, we'd have the chats, and I'd cry then. But when somebody, if I could hear my father come in from work, the postman would come in the drive and we'd wipe the tears straight away. You know, I was able to cry in front of my mom, but nobody else. So I think it's a massive thing even to get the word out there that it's not a sign of weakness to cry or to talk to anybody about it. It's a sign of strength. And I spoke with a class with Kerry there maybe 4 or 5 years ago in Leaving Cert, and it was something similar that I'm saying today. I hadn't much put together, but I just sorted things out. And I often got very down, very low while caring for my mother, you know, but wouldn't speak to anybody about it. And it's amazing an interaction with somebody else, what way it could make your day go. If you're down and you're low and you're upset and you don't want to go home because you know I'm gonna be changing a pad now when I go home because it hasn't been done. And if somebody just blanks you, you just feel like the lowest person in the world. But a simple hello, how are you? You know, you all know somebody that is struggling somewhere in life, and a simple how are you doing? It can actually turn your day around, and it can make you think that somebody else cares. I think it's particularly important for people in the college spectrum to be aware. I'm sure you are all aware of it, to be honest, but it's something that I've brought with me. I was often a very angry lad. I held grudges. I suppose a lot of our grudges in South Kerry would have been football, you know, and that's the way it was. If there was somebody from a rival club that there was something going on in their lives, sure, I couldn't give a damn because, you know, they weren't part of my circle. But how stupid was I, you know? You learn as you get older and hopefully a bit wiser that these are the small things in life. These mean nothing. These tiny little grudges you have in a football match or a hurling match or whatever. It's the person behind that. And I can't advocate enough on just checking in on people, because I was checked in on plenty of times. A few people here used to call to my house on a regular basis, and without you knowing it, you did massive stuff for me. But Cathy, you touched on it as well. When my mother got diagnosed, her friends disappeared. She would have had 2 or 3 very, very close friends, you know, but they disappeared. We would have seen them before my mum's diagnosis, and the last time I would have seen them was at my mum's wake. So the in-between bit, I don't resent the people. I talk to them now. There's absolutely no problem, but it's just showing you that there's an issue out there. People are afraid to talk about dementia. People are afraid to approach somebody with dementia. People are afraid, in general, to just to come up to somebody with dementia. How are you? But it's just to break the barrier. You know yourself. If if you feel awkward about talking to somebody about something, the moment you talk to them about it, that the awkwardness is gone. But the longer you put it off, you'll never speak about it. I suppose I was very lucky in my relationship with my mother. We created a bond that even now I haven't. Like, my mother has passed since, like I said, July 2016, and I'm still struggling with bits of it, but I'm delighted I'm struggling with it because she's there with me the whole time. But my father was a carer as well, and he struggled a lot more than I did, I think, because I suppose it's his life partner, it's his wife, you know, they would have been 18, 19, tearing around the town together, you know. He knew her a lot longer than I did. He had more intimate moments with her, more fights with her, laughed more, had more secrets with. But it took me a while to recognise that. I thought I was the only person struggling. I used to often, myself and my father, we used to nearly come to blows some nights because of just stupid arguments. But it was always for the good of my mother, and I never realised till later on the effect it could have on my father and other family members. And I suppose when I talk about family members, they are so important when faced with a diagnosis of dementia. While caring for my mother, I was very stupid, to be honest. I wouldn't apply for carers allowance because I said I don't need who gets paid for caring for their mother. I thought it was crazy. crazy stuff. Wouldn't accept help. You know, there was so much help there. There was people calling to the house, do you want to go away for a weekend, Sean? I said, no, I'm fine. Until it, honest to God, nearly broke me, you know, and my own social life, I suppose, it fell away. So I suppose the smaller my mother's social life came, the smaller my social life came. I didn't go out as much when I went out. I suppose I was at home still in my head. I'd be wondering, is Mum all right? You know, what kind of a son am I to be going out and my mother needs me at home? It's just crippled with guilt. And also while caring for Mum at home, you know, you'd be having conversations. I'd be, as time went down, I'd be feeding Mum and she might spit food out, and I used to get angry at her. Not all the time, but if you're having a bad day yourself, you get up and you go, Jesus Christ, and you'd walk out of the room, and I'd be below in the bottom room, and I'd be saying, what in God's name? I'm not cut out for this at all. I'm after giving out to my mother because she won't eat food. You know, it comes to a stage where you're at breaking point. So we got help from the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland. We got home help in. We had 2 girls who came in for 2 hours a day at the start for one day, and it was 4 hours in the week. My God, I thought it was heaven, you know, and again, I felt guilty of thinking it was heaven, that I go, geez, there's somebody calling now, I can go away, I don't need to worry about Mum for a while. But I remember they used to call between 12 and 4, I think it was, and the first day I was sitting outside the house at 2:30, until one of the carers came out and they said, what are you doing? This is your break, head away. So it's very hard to let go, and I know you touched on it as well about home help and home care. It's so important. It's so important for family care to get a break, and for the right person to come in, the right training. I'm working myself with Family Carers Ireland now, and I see some of the challenges that are out there of home helps going in, assisting people. They're paid minimum wage. They're asked to do crazy hours, short notice. It's something that our country has to sort out, because the number of people with dementia is increasing threefold, I think. And other illnesses, other cancer, you have Parkinson's, and you have everything that's falling under the home care bracket. And our home care workers aren't being supported, aren't being paid enough, aren't being looked after. If you're a home care worker, you're on a 0-hour contract. You cannot apply for a mortgage. You can't go to the credit union to get a loan. You're on a 0-hour contract. You could be working 30 hours this week, you could be working no hour next week. So it's something that has to be addressed at the top table, and as part of the Dementia Carers Campaign Network, we are addressing that. I'm sitting on the National Dementia Strategy Monitoring Group on behalf of that group, and it is something we're raising, but in fairness, we're raising it for a long time and very little has been done, so I think it's something that is massively important. I don't know where I'm at now, to be honest. I suppose before I'm here to talk about Mum and myself, I suppose. So I would have told my mother so many things that nobody ever knew. Nobody will ever know. And at one stage, Mum was able to talk back to me. As the disease progressed, that slowly went. She was able to give me a wink, and I'd know she was listening. But I suppose part of if you don't laugh at things, you'll cry. I suppose, but part of the reason I used to tell her things was that I knew she wasn't going to tell anybody, and it was an outlet to me. But I knew she probably wouldn't have anyway. But I suppose, probably women in the room, you tend to tell things you're not supposed to be honest. But I was talking about my relationships. I was going out with my girlfriend for 10 years. She's now my wife. I don't know how she stayed with me through all of that, to be honest, because she was number 2 in the relationship, and she was well aware of that. I suppose we're from a very Gaelic football background down home. Either myself or my father, we could rarely go to a game together. We wouldn't anyway, but if he wanted to go to a Kerry game, I'd be at home that week. Like, say for National League now, I don't know, do you know National League, the AFU League football, but this year now I can go to any match I want to, and I'm feeling guilty about that because I'm delighted. Whereas before, 3 weeks in advance, 4 weeks in advance, you'd have to put things in place. Somebody be home from mom, you'd be rushing home, you'd be praying that the game wouldn't go to extra time because your carer might have to leave. But they're things that still make me feel guilty. And I think as any carer, I think there's an awful lot of guilt. But I think it's recognising that guilt and it's being okay with that guilt. I think you have to recognise it, or you're going to cripple yourself. But one of the most important things for me was that my mother got to meet my son, Connor. So Connor was, again, my mother was one of the first people to find out that my wife was pregnant. She was my girlfriend at the time. We live in a great age, you know, that's allowed now. Wouldn't have said it maybe 20 years ago. But it was I have a photo of my mother and my son, and it's a photo that I give a kiss to every night. I think my wife thinks I have OCD, and I think I probably have a bit of it too. But it's a routine I go to bed. But she wasn't able to speak with Connor, but she knew he was there. She held him. She met her first granddaughter, Chloe, who's my niece in America, and I suppose, while that was absolutely amazing, one of the hardest things for me was my wedding. My wedding day, my wife was mad to get married abroad, so we got married below in Kerry. We went about 20 miles out the road, but that was really because I wanted my mother at my wedding, and my I suppose I call it my wife, understood that, but she died 9 months before we got married. But the arrangements were made, and we were very happy to have it in Carsavine. She was very much part of the wedding. My mother was born in Boston, and she came back to Ireland when she was about 17 or 18, and the first tune that was played was the Boston Rose, so it was something we used to always play, and Galway Bay, her favourite song, was played at the wedding as well. And the bridesmaids, they had, sorry, I should have told you this, that my mother was a crazy Irish dancer. Absolutely loved it. You know, she worked 3 jobs at a time, and she came down to the school and she used to teach Irish dancing, and we used to have to pay 50 pence. Myself and my brother, we can't Irish dance because we were the stubborn lads that very embarrassed with my mother coming down to teach us to dance. But the bridesmaids had a lovely surprise at the wedding. They had the professional Irish dancers came out and danced, and all the tables and the wedding tables were named after Irish dances. So that tells you how much I knew about the table planning when I didn't know the names till the day of the wedding. But it's strange, but one of the happiest times that I had with my mother was when she was dying, when she was passing away. We're inside the hospital in Carsavine, and she stayed at home till her last 2 weeks. She actually went in for respite, and she never came home. But it was just so comforting inside there. Family were there, friends were there, were able to come in, and it was the hospital were just so welcome. It was like a home for us. We could come in, and myself and my brother, we actually slept in the hospital for 2 weeks. I'd say my mother was being reminded of the early days of the smell of our bedroom, you know. But the people and the carers inside there were so unbelievably welcoming and caring for us. And I always say, if you don't laugh at things again, you'll cry. But my mother's favourite number is 7. So if we were at home and there was racing on, I'd ask her to pick a number, and it was always number 7. And I said it in my I did a talk before, and I said, if any of you go to a race meeting, just back number 7 in every race, and you will come out on top. I don't know how it works. There's some maths behind it, but we were inside in the hospital, and we were surrounded by family, and it was family, to be honest. And one of the nurses says, I think we should gather around because time is close here. So we gathered around, and one of the nurses lit a candle. and we were all around, and there was prayers being said and everything. Next thing, the candle was going out. These are 4-hour candles, so they lit another one, and we're all around again, and you've seen a few people kind of going, I've a pot on at home, but I go, the next thing, the third candle went down, it was 7 candles. I think she was just, it was just something myself, my father, my brother, I suppose we looked at each other, because we, whatever the significance of number 7 was, it was just something that we were so aware of the resilience of my mother. I suppose throughout her illness, she never once complained, she never said, why me, she only ever got angry once, and that was the day she got diagnosed. She has been an absolute inspiration to me. She still continues to be an inspiration to me. I'm still dealing with the fact that she's not here. I suppose for the first few weeks I'd be picking up the phone to my father and asking to speak with Mum. And my father was so accommodating that even when Mum wasn't able to speak, he'd put her up the phone and you'd hear her breath, and that was enough. And I'm fully convinced that, and I could be alone in thinking this, but the person with dementia, when my mother wasn't able to communicate with me, I'm 100% sure she knew what was going on. That might only be me, that might be me wanting to know, to feel secure that my mother knew what I was saying to her, but I'm fully convinced till the day she slipped away that she knew I was in the room, she knew exactly what was going on, she knew who was there for her. I think I've said all I'm going to say, I'm not sure. I suppose I'm very lucky to be able to talk about my mother, because that's a way I use of keeping her alive in my head. I did a talk there, for Al's talks there, about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I was saying that I was putting things off to try to keep my mother with me. So two of the things were, there was we had to put her name on a headstone and give out the mass booklets, the memorial cards, and that was a great thing for me. I'd put them off because I had something to do for Mum next week. They have been done now. My father ended up doing the headstone because I didn't do it, but I did the booklets, and it's something strange. I suppose for the first time in 10 years, my mother needs nothing from me, and in a selfish way, I'm not happy. I'd rather be there to do. I prefer to care for her, but this is my way of giving back. As I say, my mother's an inspiration for me. Like I said earlier on, I was a block layer. Leaving cert was absolutely nothing for me, meant nothing for me, to be honest. I had no interest in it. I remember the day the lads got the results for leaving cert, I was laying blocks behind in a different area. I didn't even know the results were out that day. That's how far removed I was from it. And then when I was 28, I went to college. I did a degree in social care, and I got a first class honours, which was, I don't think it was the first. I'll tell you how bad I was. I rang up my girlfriend at the time because the results come out online, and I said I got 11, and I said all the lads got 21. So she says, no, that's a 1-1, and I thought I was 10 marks. So the system is flawed, to be honest. But because I did my final year project on my mum, and it was on people like my mum, people with early onset Alzheimer's disease and their carer. And I think when somebody has such an interest in something, such a love for something, such a driving force behind them, you will do anything, I just want to thank all the lads here, to be honest, and I'm, like as Cathy said, I like what you said, we're absolutely blown away by it, because I've given a lot of talks and every one of them is very important, but to know that there's a college or a university out there that cares, that there's young people that care, and if there was one person here tonight, I would have given the same talk, because if one person walks away with the knowledge or the mind frame that they can change something, it's amazing. I'm so privileged to come down here and talk to you. Like, if you ever need anything again, I'm sure we'd be very willing to help you. I'm here, as I say, because I was a carer. I'm here because I want to keep my mother's memory alive, and And it's something I always say about my mother. She's not a person who died from Alzheimer's. She's a person who lived with it. And thank you very much.